So in the last video, I mentioned that meditation is not a self-improvement project. And I want to make another video because that was one of my biggest hangups or misconceptions that I couldn't really quite resolve. Because it seemed like when my teachers say that, I'm like, isn't this a definitional, semantic game that we're playing here? Of course, we're self-improving when we're trying to meditate, right? Like, why is it not approached in this way? And especially nowadays, as you know, um, mindfulness is a very commercialized topic. It's used for productivity and getting things done and achieve peace and calm so that you can, be a, successful person. Like these are all the trappings involved that are very confusing, especially if you're new to the topic because everyone seems like an expert. I don't know, whether I'm coming across that way or not. But like there's always this like trapping of someone on the internet telling you something, right? So I think like one of the most helpful ways in which I've like unknotted this, or at least have like collected from different teachers as to how they say it, is the idea of practice, in the Buddhist tradition, in many other traditions as well, is that it is really meant as a understanding exercise. So let's just say instead of self-improvement, we can call it self-understanding. And with that, it implies that there is no like fixing and like there's no um like a lot of like activities involved here, because if we start thinking that this is a DIY, home improvement project, then we're starting to construct and build things on top of the concept of meditation, which is opposite of where we're going. We're trying to deconstruct and demolish some of these concepts we've built up about our sense of self, about the world, etc. So the word self-improvement, it can be very deceptive because we will start going towards a I need to do this, I need to do that kind of attitude. And that would actually sometimes negate the process that we're trying to let happen. So a lot of this stuff, which again, it's a very paradoxical thing, is that we're not so much doing meditation, we are undoing whatever it is that we normally do. Um, and the whole process of awakening, enlightenment slash being happy, being at peace, is to seize what we're doing, like stop what we're doing that is going in the opposite direction, rather than trying to do more, because doing more is not the right direction. So however, I think with that, then the obvious question is like, okay, and then but you're telling me to do all this stuff, like like the act of like sitting meditation, walking meditation, isn't that doing stuff? So they are in a way like vehicles, like they are processes that are designed to undo processes. So eventually, once uh, we get there together, like the instructions would change. Like then there's a whole other world of things to learn. And to be quite transparent too, like I'm currently, I did my neuroscience PhD. I'm a Buddhist chaplain, and I'm also applying to seek more training in how to teach meditation at a more in-depth level, because once you practice more, new constructs will arise, because it's almost like we've deconstructed to the other layers and we're like, oh, there's other new things I didn't know were there. However, in the beginning, this whole idea of like fixing and improvement and all of that can lead one into the opposite direction. So, what I mean by the process that helps undo process is that, for example, in the walking meditation instructions, I mentioned that we are engaging with the sensations of the foot touching the ground. We are, in the beginning, you can look a little bit around. It's usually like advised that you fix your attention to a reasonable, like don't trip on the ground gaze, so that there is a little bit of stability there. Um, but the idea is that by doing this kind of like lower activity, we can then start to provide ourselves more space against the usual mental activities that are ongoing. So, um, and practically speaking, as one does this kind of walking meditation, it is inevitable that thoughts and emotions would come up. Like unless you are really really advanced, that is going to happen, right? And the trick about the not self improvement thing is that the temptation is there where if I'm walking and I'm thinking about something, then I will start talking to myself, right, in my head, and like start engaging with the thoughts. And oftentimes these are thoughts about self improvement, right, in some way or another. Oh, I should be doing this. I can do that later. That kind of thing. And these sort of engagements with the mental activity is what we're trying to not do. And it's also really tempting to be like, yeah, but if I can understand why I think these thoughts because of some other reason in the past, then I can truly stop these thoughts once and for all. I can tell you that as someone who's done many of these like down the line thinking, it doesn't really help to do that while intentionally meditating because it stirs up more mental activity, and again it's the opposite direction. I think it is like important for us to contemplate some reasoning as to like, why do I overreact to this, why do I, these sort of things are important to know. um However, doing so in a discursive kind of way, and these like, oh, I'm kind of like just generating these thoughts in a non-specific kind of way, generally does not actually lead to helpful conclusions, and like takes away one's ability to have develop this deeper self-understanding that requires a base of non lowered activity to occur. Then the question is, well, okay, then don't we become zombies and become brain dead because we're trying to lower mental activity? So um you can see I've answered a lot of these questions before. So, like, the whole idea is that the mental activity that's normally ongoing, it has served us well for however far we've gotten. However, to get to independence, free, like peace and freedom, they are a little bit in our way, and that there are different kinds of mental activities going on. So a few videos ago, I mentioned that, hey, when we are breathing, it's naturally happening by itself, and there is another nervous system that's happening, right? That's controlling that. Similarly, there's a lot of these sorts of mental activities that are part of that other system, that my teacher, Yo Franstow, calls the reactive operating system. And its job is to keep us safe, and it's done a really great job so far. However, if we want to go beyond from survival into flourishing, that's when we need to develop a more emergent operating system, and that's a whole other set of processes that can only happen if we're willing to slowly release the reactive operating system from what it thinks is its job. And to do that, that's where practices like meditation, whether formally or whether in a moment to moment mindfulness, starts to happen, so that we can exchange the operating system that's involved here and start to be able to access a new way to perceive the world, that may allow us to be happier. So, yeah, I think I'll end the video here since I'm on to the 10 minutes. But I think in the next video, I'll revisit some of the topics I ended with here. Um, so in the reactive versus emergent operating system, I think there's a lot of wisdom in there. I'll talk more about that, and also the word mindfulness, because I also think that is a huge trap that we have accidentally created.